What is assumed intent? What's declared intent? So yeah, do you want to demystify those for us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, at the end of the day, the assumed intent stuff really fell into the old school MQL lead gen bucket. So with that, you're talking about a short term sales focused strategy where unfortunately you do have extremely low close rates and high volumes of what I would consider to be junk. You're creating sales inefficiency by prematurely pushing contacts down to sales that are not yet ready for sales conversations. And so examples of that is, the classic content syndication leads. You met somebody at a trade show booth or an industry conference, and you assume that they, want to be put into a sales motion after that. You host a live hangout, a virtual digital hangout online or a webinar or something like that. And you assume that all the signups and attendees want to be talking to sales after that, which most of them don't. And then, of course, the dreaded gated content downloads. We can get into some of that as well if you want on today's talk. But that is the premise of like the assumed intent, and we'll start there.
Amazing. And then I guess on the flip side, what would you define as declared intent?
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about declared intent, you're looking at ways where you don't really need to do that much qualification at all because they're coming to you raising their hand, saying that they are ready to start a real serious evaluation of your product or service. And when I think about, if you were to do a declared intent audit of your website, you would look at things like inbound calls, pricing requests, demo requests, free trial starts, and possibly even requests for information that come from sources like G2 and Gartner. Because if you think about the traffic sources from those sites, it's very high intent for the most part. It's research evaluation level, consideration stage set. I'm looking at a couple different providers. I need to talk to a couple of them to see what's the right choice. But
Could you even summarize it as like it's someone who's actually expecting your call? Like that's kind of the difference.
yeah, that is brilliant. Yeah, it's when it's not interruptive. They're
Yeah.
expecting your call. So assumed intent is often interruptive. Declared intent is I've been waiting for you.
Yeah. Like
So
this
that's
is the
great.
expected behavior that I assumed I would get, well, I knew I would get when I took this action. Versus you download an ebook, albeit we all know now that you're probably going to get a sales follow up, but that's not the reason behind why you took that action.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll give you some like real deal street knowledge. Like most B2B marketers and B2B salespeople and people who are hip to the scheme, they're just putting, if they really want to read your stuff, they'll go to fakeemailgenerator.com. They'll find ways around it if they just want to get the content. And so you'll be not only doing all those things I said before, but you'll also be clogging your CRM with junk ghost data. So the problems that come with that first model are it's quite a laundry list of problems that you just really want to avoid.
And then I'm just going to just ask this follow-on question, because where would you say like intent data fits into all of this? Um,
Hmm.
yeah, like how are you? How, do you find or think that it is effective? How, when it is being used, can it be effective? Where does you see it sit in relation to these like two very different tactics?
Yeah. So one of the biggest problems with outbound in general, for the most part, is that it's ice cold, and not only is it ice cold, but it's a complete guess. And so imagine that, if you're in sales in 2023 and you have to do cold calls and cold emails, um, the odds are just so massively stacked against you because you have to be lucky in many cases, right? You have to figure out like, okay, maybe this is the right person I'm reaching out to, but I have no idea where this potential thing sits on their priority list. I have no idea if this is a problem that they're even thinking about or dealing with right now. I have no idea what their perception of my brand is. It's all just like a
Guess.
lot of, again, going back to the assumed thing, there's a lot of assumptions being made where intent data can alleviate some of that is, for example, if you're a marketer and you see a surge of activity on your pricing page from a target account, it might make sense to say, after these, things are happening, meaning, certain amount of visits on a certain page throughout a certain duration of time, it could indicate that there's some real serious interest from one of those target accounts happening. It might make sense then to come up with a plan, a messaging and outreach plan with sales together and say, how do we go and attack this? How do we slice and dice this? How do we go and figure out who it's going to be that we're going to reach out to based on this information? And it's basically just going to increase our odds of success rather than it just being a completely cold, blind guess.
Yeah.
So that's the way I see the intent data making the world of outbound better, changing it from ice cold guest interaction to at least something that is already warmed up.
And I guess like in that way, that if we like make a comparison with like assumed intent, it used to be that those MQLs, those ebook downloads were that for salespeople. It was like, go guys, this is really good news. They've downloaded this ebook.
Mm-hmm.
There's some level of intent there when actually that really isn't the case. Like now we're in a different world. We have tools that can give us real intent data and insights. Plus also contact data, which will be more accurate than someone filling in the form of fake email address, etc. as well. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, arguably different scenario, different world.
Different scenario, different world. And you know the thing that I also want to point out is the importance of understanding traffic sources. Somebody going to like a pricing page or a on-demand demo video page or something like that is very, very different than you know I downloaded a white paper, or I attended a webinar, and who knows if I even attended it. I just subscribed to the thing, and maybe I just wanted the on-demand replay so I could zoom through it because there was somebody presenting that I really like. So
In the moment,
understanding,
good idea.
yeah. So understanding that difference is key.
Amazing, cool. So I guess we've touched on this a bit, but are there any other like negatives you would want to call out around this assumed intent like way of working and approach to marketing?
Well, yeah. I mean, the negative list associated with this assumed way of doing sales and marketing it's really long. I mean, I don't know how much I want to go and like rip it apart right now. I certainly could, but yeah, there's a lot more to it, and I don't know, maybe we just move on and like I'll sprinkle more of that in as we talk.
Yeah, so I guess we now know like what we shouldn't be doing. So assumed intent is bad. So let's talk more about like this whole declared intent approach. I think this is like where people get stuck because a lot of people will understand that this makes a lot of sense, like it's how they would want to buy, but at the same time they're like, okay, but how do I get started? Like, where do I begin? Like, what are the things that I should be doing to kick this off?
Right. So first of all, I think you do have to have your demand capturing program in a really tight, you have to be running a tight ship. You have to know exactly what you're doing in order to capture intent. You have to know how to treat demand capture channels differently from the demand creation channels.
Can we
And
just
when,
on that quickly, just because
sure.
I'm sure there'll be people who don't know the difference between like creating demand and capturing demand, and then also what the channels that you might use for both. Just thought if we could.
Yeah, sure. So when we're talking about demand capturing, you're marketing to problem aware, solution seeking people. That is the difference. When you're doing demand creation, you're marketing to people who may not be aware fully of the problem. It's a long term education focused strategy. So those are the mindsets that you need to consider when you're doing demand capture versus demand create, or long-term demand gen. The other thing is that demand capturing has declared intent, so automatically the close rates are going to be much higher. Sales productivity and efficiency is going to be much greater. Sales cycles are going to be much shorter. And the bottom line is that you're going to have much more serious people in the product evaluation consideration set for your whatever it is that you offer. And so some of the example metrics for the demand capture is going to be your classic lagging indicators, things like attended a demo, uh, maybe after a couple of sales engineers or demos are presented, an actual quote or a proposal gets sent. And then you actually can start to look at things like your lead to win percentage, your quote to win percentage. And that starts to become the formulation of real pipeline evaluation that can open the door to understanding how successful and how good is your marketing and how well are you doing.
And then
Whereas,
on that
yeah, go ahead.
captured, like on that capture demand piece, like typically, what are the channels and like activities that you're running?
Yeah, sure. So, from my perspective, right, everybody has a slightly different one, but this is, for me, after doing this for a long time, this is what I really boiled it down to. You have bottom of funnel SEO, all right, pain point SEO. You have paid search, primarily Google. We already kind of talked about like review websites, but certainly G2, Trust Radius, all those kinds of sites definitely play a role. You also have, this is something a lot of companies aren't thinking about maybe good enough, but the importance of affiliate and aggregator websites. So these are sites like business.com, US News, PC Mag, right? There's so many of them. Even much smaller domains that are just kind of popping up, doing list pages, comparison content. Believe it or not, those things are heavy hitters and contribute massively to a demand capturing program. And if you're one of the smaller ticket items, like let's say you're a email marketing automation software, or you're a business phone, cloud phone system, right? These are going to be even more important because those are typically a higher volume game. And then I would even consider intent data. I would consider intent data to play a big role, especially if you have very long enterprise complex sales cycles. I would see intent data playing a role in your demand capturing. And so that's what I think about when it comes to demand capturing. And it really comes down to inbound channels that are driving traffic through high intent keyword searches. So we're talking about things like comparison searches, alternatives to searches, review oriented searches, like, for example, is Jasper AI legit? Is Jasper AI worth it? Pricing related questions. How much does it cost to, build a B2B contact list? How much does VoIP cost? Is identity theft protection worth the cost? That kind of stuff. Then you have integration related keywords. You have combo searches, things like I need a password manager plus VPN. Buying process related keywords, things like the best email marketing for Shopify, B2B e-commerce plus that. And then, of course, good old use case searches, things like LMS for corporate training. I could go on and on. I could keep rattling these examples off. But when you're thinking about demand capturing, these are all the things that lead to a demand capture. But there's a lot happening before that as well. But this is
So
this is the thing that,
I guess
yeah.
on that, so like I think that's a great summary in terms of like this is where you should focus your energy and efforts, and like auditing and your planning around like actually the capture demand piece. And I guess when we go back to my question of like how do you get started in this new approach to marketing where you're going down a focus on declared intent and saying goodbye to assumed intent, like get your house in order first when it comes to capture demand stuff, because you're probably doing quite a lot of this anyway, because you're even in that MQL, old MQL lead generation model, people are running a lot of this kind of really like bottom of funnel capture demand activity, but maybe it's blended into that like MQL picture. So I guess like it's segmenting it out and then just like getting your house in order towards all of those things that you've just mentioned before you then enter the realms of create demand. I mean, that's just how I would think of it. But
Yes, correct. The thing is, you got to think about covering the bottom of funnel first before you start, doing a lot of top of funnel activities. Aside from the fact that you need good product marketing, good product market fit, good pricing page, strategy, good feature pages, good product pages. Obviously, you need all that stuff. But once you have that, you still need to start doing the demand capture stuff because that's where you make the most ground. And to your point of like getting the house in order, segmenting it out, cleaning things up, getting the right marketers in the right positions on the field. One of the big challenges I've seen, and I'll just give you an example, is having a mismatch of marketing talent or marketing ability with expectations of producing declared intent or pipeline or demand capture. So imagine a content marketer doing content marketing at a SaaS company, and they don't have a background in demand capture. They just have a background in kind of classic SaaS content marketing. They're going to be pressured to be doing demand capture things, and they don't have that strength. They don't have that skill set. And so a mismatch or a misalignment of skill sets to expectations in marketing are one of the big things that create that tension, that problem of, man, I'm a good storyteller on social. I'm not a good demand capturer. Why am I being held to this standard of pipeline when that's not really my strength? And so understanding everybody's team strengths in marketing and having the mindset be kind of very distinct into what your role and responsibility is, and tying that to that end North Star metric is key. And I don't see enough of that happening, unfortunately.